Hello, and welcome to Doctor Who 50 Years Ago, the show that looks back to the episode that aired in 1967 and looks at the differences between then and now. This week, the beginning of Kit Pedler's story, The Moonbase, which was opened by Michael Fish's descendants or something. I'm Ben.
I am Luke.
And I'm Nick.
And here we are, and here we go into the news from 1967. There's not much. On Tuesday, the 7th of February, the Chinese government announced that it could no longer guarantee the safety of Soviet diplomats outside the Soviet embassy building in Beijing. Diplomatic relations are nearly severed.
This is sort of what we were talking about last week about how it was going to lead towards a Sino-Soviet border war.
Conflict.
And this is the further escalation of that conflict that will lead to American-Chinese rapprochement under Nixon.
Yes, it's a steady escalation. Very international, this week's news. On Wednesday, the 8th of February, President Johnson sent a letter to Ho Chi Minh saying he's prepared to order a cessation of bombing against North Vietnam if they stopped infiltrating South Vietnam. There was a response that was being prepared. I couldn't find it, and I doubt much came from it.
Yeah, this to me this sounds like grandstanding. Oh, if the bad guys are willing to stop being bad, we'll stop bombing, yeah. Oh, that'll play well to the American public, and I can get re-elected, thought Johnson.
Yes.
We're coming up to an election year.
Yes.
68.
And at this point, because of the way the American Constitution works, Johnson could have been elected for a second time. He could have he could have been president from 68
to
from
72.
69 to 73.
That's
yeah.
the one. But events changed that.
Yeah, well, as we go through the year. Oh, wait, no. Well,
we'll just about get to the Tet Offensive, or we might just miss it by a few weeks.
Yeah.
And that and re-evaluation of American opinion towards Vietnam forces.
Yeah.
Johnson decides not to stand again. On Friday, the 10th of February, very important for America at least, the 25th Amendment of the US Constitution was ratified on presidential succession and disability issues.
There have been 27 amendments to the US Constitution, but there haven't been any amendments to the US Constitution since, I think, the early 80s. So since about 1982 or something like that. Now, this is very important because to get an amendment through Congress, you need to have a supermajority. You need at least 60 to 2/3 of 60 senators or 66 senators and 2/3 of the House of Representatives, something like that, to get through an amendment.
This is a divided Congress, which is a divided hostile Congress.
Yes. So what this shows is since about the early 90s, American politics is really polarized to the point where Democrats and Republicans can agree on very little. Even now, until very recently, they could agree on foreign policy. And even now, they can't even do that anymore. The likelihood of another amendment being agreed to the Constitution is extremely low. A 28th Amendment is not going to happen anytime soon.
And finally, on Saturday the 11th of February, in the first counterattack by the Chinese People's Liberation Army against the student participants in China's Cultural Revolution, the city of Baoding was recaptured, restoring its governor to power and jailing more than 1,000 members of the August 1st group of the Red Guards. Things are going nuts in China.
So basically, people don't know what's the right side to be on in this Cultural Revolution, because the army is arresting the Red Guards who were ordered by Mao to do stupid stuff.
Yes.
That's very destabilizing to the country.
And that was the news. And now we shall look at The Moonbase, Episode 1. It's got a lot of things in it. It's packed.
Maybe it's because I've watched this one too much, but this was one of the ones where I could get into it, but I didn't like it that much anymore. I found it more generic than anything we've seen this season. At least you can say about the Highlanders, the Smugglers, that you didn't see anything like that generally. Here, this feels very set up to the base under siege style.
Yes, I can kind of agree with you on that. It's there's one thing Kit Pedler can do. Its base is under siege. He's already demonstrated this with the 10th planet, and so this feels like a bit of a knockoff sequel.
I found this gorgeous. I thought this was a beautiful, beautiful atmospheric piece. There was a great build-up. You don't know. So when you know that the side, you see like the alien hand that's twisting the knob every now and then. You don't know what that is. You've never seen a Cyberman hand look like that, so you don't know what alien that you're dealing with. The serial doesn't give away the fact that it's a Cyberman.
Troughton's giving his all, which is great.
Yeah,
he's actually invested.
The audio in this is beautiful. There's music, and the audio gives it. I think there's basically a concert audio. And I like that. It gives it an atmosphere that some other pieces don't have.
It is part of the creation of the staple which has withstood the test of time, the base under siege.
Mm.
So the TARDIS eventually settles down, landing on the moon. It's not Mars, but it's close enough. We'll introduce the Ice Warriors some other time. Jamie doesn't believe they're on the moon, whilst Ben and Polly force the Doctor to let them explore because it's the moon. Ben and Polly do quite well to actually invoke the 60s ethos of, oh, it's the moon, can we go on it, please? And the Doctor lets them explore, giving them all spacesuits from the convenience chest.
Yeah, no, the chest is a continuity callback to Power of the Daleks.
Mm.
But the bit which really gets me about this is that the Doctor says, okay, you can go ashore. He's using naval language.
Yeah.
Now, look at Star Trek of the time. That was very good for ordering of people in terms of naval rankings. So you would have admirals and things like that. Spaceships are still an extension of shipping. Whereas nowadays, spaceship has so much entered our minds as its own thing, as, say, the word disinterested and uninterested to mean the same thing.
Here we are on the moon, where the group spots a light in the sky, but dismisses it. They discover light gravity with the power of Kirby wires and sound effects, and everybody has fun, which is nice. It wastes a good amount of time until Jamie overshoots and knocks himself unconscious in the direction of the moon base, and it's not the third one either. Men from the moon base drag him in, and the TARDIS crew follow.
This is obvious padding, but it establishes the atmosphere, which I like. And it is the obvious sort of taking advantage of the fact that this is, in 1967, is the novelty factor of the moon surface. Which would not exist now,
It gives a sort of good relationship between the TARDIS crew. They're having fun, I guess.
You say they're having fun, and to some extent the sound effects when they're jumping remind me of the Looney Tunes, when you'd have someone do a little trill on something electronic when anyone made a facial expression in a Wile E. Coyote cartoon. But there's this one line the Doctor says, "One turn that spacesuit and you'll suffocate."
I think that's the Kit Pedler being an old man and stopping the young ones from having fun moment. And there's several of them in this episode.
That's got to be the Kit. Like a lot of watching this, you could see a lot of Jerry Davis in it, but that line in particular feels like is definitely a Kit Pedler line, as you say, Ben.
You're one jump away from death. This moon base is an international weather control unit using the power of gravity and big balls, also known as the gravitron, which is what knocked the TARDIS off course. Hobson, the base controller, is a man dealing with an epidemic of infections, losing men vital to keeping the entirety of...
At least at this point you can tell this is a spiritual successor as well as a sequel, because the bad science carries on Yeah, they use gravity or something to make hurricanes go to Hawaii, even though hurricanes don't exist in the Pacific Ocean, but whatever. I think the infection, the disease, is Jerry Davis, because if you watch Revenge of the Cybermen, the exact same idea, the veins on the face are all lit up and look horrible, and it's a disease.
Maybe it's to start the talking point of, why can't we just defeat diseases? Why can't we live forever? And then the subject of the Cybermen comes up.
When the man falls over, there's very little commotion about this. Everyone seems quite blasé, and the line they use when they're radioing Earth is that they've got a bit of a flap on. It's incredibly understated. It's very subtly introducing the idea of the disease, and when he slips and almost destroys Hawaii, there's very little shouting about it. And I think this wonderfully contrasts the Doctor in the previous scene, who was terrified about the spacesuits. He's very aware of the dangers. Throughout all of season 4, what we can see is that the Doctor is aware of what's going on. The Doctor has the view of the correct, or almost the anarchist, but it's shown to basically be correct.
Especially for this serial, it's a question of who understands or doesn't understand the gravity of the situation. The Doctor and crew meet Hobson, and the Doctor refuses to be the relief doctor from Earth, who never arrives, as far as I can remember, by the way, so no case of mistaken identity there. Polly goes to see Jamie, whilst the Doctor and Ben are talked to death by Hobson, who explains the plot, the Moonbase, the year 2070, and the entire crew, and the virus, in a splurge of science.
Yeah, I saw this as being very of the time. You wouldn't get this in a piece of sci-fi now, but in the 60s, you would get your exposition dump scene. Something like this. Oh, look, we're in space. Here's all the crew, just so you know who they are.
Yeah,
we don't have to talk about it ever again. It's sort of, they haven't, sci-fi is very much a diamond in the rough at this point in time.
Once you get to Star Wars, then everything gets set in stone.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. It's like, that's why I say diamond in the rough, because some of the stuff from the 60s, 70s is, before Star Wars, is utterly beautiful. But a lot of it is very clunky, and this is a bit clunky.
It's like a devolution
Yes.
in Kit Pedler's writing, yeah. Whereas the characters explain themselves in the 10th Planet, they have to be explained by another character in this one.
And I think another bad thing compared is that the outside is so much more forgiving in this one. In the 10th Planet is this, you can feel the cold. There's that hiss in the air. There's the snow that you can see. They have to talk about getting warm. Here, they say, oh, come on, let's go outside. And they get on their spaceships and they have a jolly around. You still have to dress up, but you dress up a lot more comedically.
You don't care so much about the characters, but the mystery is what's keeping you in this episode. Who's behind the illness?
The virus brings down the third man in charge of the Gravitron, which goes nuts. International Space Command gives the Moonbase a right telling off for putting people in danger from a hurricane. But we discover in this conversation that the radio communications between the Earth and the Moon has a noise ratio, which means somebody's listening in from nearby.
This is a great bit, and it's not paid off until the end, and even at the end it's not properly paid off, because the most human things about the Cybermen in the 10th Planet were their hands. They still had human hands.
Oh, right. So, yeah, that's what makes this reveal all the more better.
It's that hand, though. The way that it's lost all humanity. It's got those weird...
The three... I think it's back to 3 fingers is really cool. It's a really nice evolution of the design.
Having watched the Moonbase quite a few times, I'm quite fond of this design of the Cybermen.
The Cybermen don't utter a single word in this episode. And that, to me, adds to their
mystique.
And just how scary they are.
It gives the menace to the episode, which is something we don't have in New Who, as you say. Maybe New Who needs to learn to be quiet every now and then. Listening in is a spaceship controlled by a robotic hand. There is an impasse between Earth and Moonbase on what to do with this virus. So the Doctor helps out in the sick bay, which is where Jamie is. They're put on robotic beds that act as doctors. Science, Kit Pedler. And then Jamie recites his superstition in the Phantom Piper, and Polly tends to him, giving him something to do in this episode. The Doctor has doubts about the disease and sends Ben to the control room to do some stuff.
Once they get into the moon base, what does Polly do? The first thing that she does is go straight and tends to Jamie, because she's a woman and women clearly only have any place by the bed of a sick man. Women don't have any place in doing something actual of actual importance.
Yeah, if we're going to play the blame game, I'm not going to singly square it down on Kit Pedler, but I'm going to say this. In this story, you can't see Ben tending to Jamie and Polly working out in the control room. It just doesn't sound right for this story at this time, at this era, in this part of the 60s. In the control room, there's a bromance between Benoit and Hobson. That continues. We've got further trouble. Let's add another problem. There are momentary drops in air pressure every now and then. Hint, hint.
This bit was fascinating as ever, where I'm concerned, for the most obscure of reasons. And it's because of the line, "Ugh, just keep him away from me. I'm going to go and lie down." He's completely uninterested in people, and he just wants to get his job done. He doesn't care about these rogue elements that much, so long as they don't interfere with what's going on. He's definitely of the capitalist persuasion, but he's generally an alright guy as a leader. Contrast this in the 70s with the Robots of Death, where the leader of that base is a complete scumbag, motivated only by greed. And in the 70s, everyone had got a lot more cynical towards authority.
It's a gradual evolution. In a storeroom, a red shirt of colour discovers a silhouette, but Ben gets in the way of it. And once he gets out of the way of it, the red shirt is attacked by the deadly silhouette with robotic arms and dragged away, much to Ben's consternation when he returns to discover said red shirt has disappeared.
I really like this scene because it was once again notching up the tension. You didn't know what was going on, and because the hands are being utterly redesigned, you don't know what it is. So it's something alien, it's something completely different. You've got the French guy, Benoit, you've got this guy. So it's not just English people in space in the future. It's an international mission. Again, sort of quite very much the sequel of the Snowcap base from Enterprise.
Yeah.
You don't know that at this point because in 1967 you don't know this because you don't know that the three-fingered things are the Cybermen yet.
Yeah, the story does a good thing by keeping its menace back till the cliffhanger of episode 1, and it has good ideas with the international setting.
The Cybermen are revealed to have, I've written it down as an arm gun thing, but it's that electricity beam. What interests me, when RTD brought them back, he gave them an arm gun thing in that little pop-up laser. Moffat gave them a whole load of stuff with the cyber mites and the super speed and all that rubbish. It's as though every showrunner thinks, okay, the Cybermen upgrade themselves as much as they can. They must give themselves some intrinsic weapons. The original Cybermen were about survival. They had these really bulky guns, they had bulky chess units. They were perversions, not built for war. but out of desperation. The more you use them, the more they have to become a villain.
Yeah, it just shows you the difficulties of writing for the Cybermen. You can weaponize them, but it kind of drags them away from their original origin. This story does start to do that with the electrical guns, but I think it would have been all right if they'd just been kept with the stunning electrical beams that they have. If they'd arrested the development there and not turned into the silly cyber guns that have no accuracy whatsoever in Earthshock. Let's go to another one of Kit Pedler's reality whiplashes. The Doctor relays to Polly about how the moon has its own special days and nights. More science, which is a bit out of character for Polly because she's suddenly being snarky with the Doctor, and there's also some kind of relationship, which is a bit weird. Dr. Evans momentarily regains consciousness to deliver cryptic clues about a silver hand before apparently dying. The Doctor goes to report this to Hobson, where Ben is telling of the Red Shirt's disappearance. There are so many problems falling on Hobson. Poor sod.
He says the line, "We haven't got a lot of data. You know what they're like down there."
Yes.
A strict people down on the surface. That authoritarian presence is looming just out of sight. There's a sense of it, but it's not real yet. And the way he says down there, it's very similar to the sort of up there that you might say. That thing which is...
a sort of hierarchy.
Exactly.
Oh. Okay. That's intriguing. So hierarchy has evolved in the 21st century to include people on Earth and people on the moon. Yeah. Polly helps Jamie, but she sees something leave with Evans's body. Nobody believes her. Hobson is forced to deal with another weather emergency, leaving the Doctor to search for Evans's body and whoever took it. Polly goes to get Jamie some water, and leaving Jamie to be menaced by a Cyberman. The Phantom Piper.
I really like this cliffhanger because you aren't told what it is. So unless you can tell because of the handles of the Cybermen in let's say in 1967, you don't know what this alien is.
And the chess unit.
But it looks really cool, and it's a really great reveal. The like there's that slight hint before of it.
There's a great build up to a wonderful payoff.
Yeah, exactly. And this cliffhanger is one of the better monster reveals.
When the Daleks came back, it was the Dalek invasion of Earth. There's no mistaking the Dalek at the end. It flashes up with the words "the Daleks" at the end as the next episode title. You are told, Dalek, Dalek, watch it, Dalek. Whereas...
I think because the Cybermen were never quite as iconic, there was this... They were willing to take the risk of... Let's scare the audience with this new alien, potentially.
The Cybermen never really got swept by a sort of mania the Daleks had, and consequently had better reveals, especially comparing the ones here to the ones 50 years later.
Yes, and I would say this reveal, even as you said, is better than the reveal in
Dalek Invasion of Earth.
Yes, Dalek Invasion of Earth, because it's not confirmed it's a Cyberman. It doesn't even say anything. It doesn't go exterminate like the Dalek in Dalek Invasion of Earth, which confirms you as a Dalek. Here it's just there's a really menacing looking robot or man in a suit. You don't know what it is if you're in 1967, and it looks really menacing, and the atmosphere is really built up, so you're really buying into the idea of it being scary. And it's just standing there, and it's threatening Jamie. And if you're like us, about 50 years later, Jamie is definitely your favorite companion at this point. So you're terrified that Jamie's going to die because Jamie's great. So
the Cybermen are back, woohoo! But they're very effectively introduced. They're given a subtle hint of menace. never mind Kit Pedler's reality whiplashes. That's just how he does it, and never mind the way he writes for women. That's how the world does it. Overall, it's quite a good episode, despite all the bits in between.
I would heartily agree with you, Ben.
I like it.
Yeah, it has its flaws, but there we are. They're nice, endearing flaws.
Yes.
Which is the difference between middling episodes 50 years ago and now. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you very much for watching. You can find us on Blogspot, which redirects to iTunes. Leave positive comments there, it helps. You can also find us on Facebook and YouTube, where you can like, comment and subscribe, and Google Plus if you dare. We'll be back next week to deal with episode 2 of the Moonbase. Until then, I have been Ben.
I have been Luke.
And I have been Nick.
Thank you, and goodbye.